Story.
I know the healing power of God. Thank you.
Azina Corleone is considered a successful and ambitious supervisor at a Sacramento hotel. She's admired by her co-workers and managers. However, her climb to where she is now has been filled with tragedy.
And I remember my question that was always, why? What did I do at such an age?
Sexually abused at 2.
To have that happen to me.
It was an ongoing crime by family members. It went on for a long time.
I didn't know how to say anything to anybody. Time after cousin, after uncle, after whoever, that stuff kept happening.
That led to drug abuse at a tender age.
Smoking cigarettes at 5. Getting drunk for the first time on the 4th of July when I was 7. My uncle giving me pink hearts, which were speed. When I was 10, smoking weed at 11, meth at 13, cocaine high all my life.
Despite going in and out of jail, Azina's drug abuse increased.
I lost my apartment to a fire.
From there, her life spiraled out of control. Rejected by her family and her former church, she became homeless, and the street was her new world.
I worked the streets, if you will, because I ended up living under a bridge. That was my home. Or, I would do whatever it took sometimes.
A judge gave her the ultimatum: join a drug rehab program or spend time behind bars.
Because sometimes faith makes us step out there and do something that looks like it's ridiculous to you, but your obedience will cause God's miracle working power in your life.
After 12 months in the Overcomers program, she's sober.
Because I had actually had my very first Thanksgiving clean and sober.
She's worked really hard to get where she's at.
Since her graduation, Azina's been promoted several times.
I've actually, over the past year, I've gotten to know her pretty well, and she is very motivating to me and to other employees. The fact that she has lost so much, but gained so much back.
She even got her mom and brother back. They were homeless too.
Do you know what? My mother now, she was living under a bridge. Her and my brother, not this last Thanksgiving, but the Thanksgiving prior, was living under a bridge. My mother is now a member of Calvary Christian Center. And now they not are only homeless, but they live next door to me in the apartments that I live in. I am whole. I am uniquely designed and built, and I am just so full of gratitude. I have to honestly say that I'm living the best days of my life.
What do you think about that testimony? Powerful, wasn't it? Here this lady was toe up from the flow up, as my pastor would say, had a lot of different issues, and if she were to stand in front of you in a congregation and tell you her testimony, it would still be compelling and powerful. But when you wrap it up with some graphics, some animation, some music, a little narration if you have to do that, and then you take that same package and you put it on Facebook, you put it on YouTube, you email it to different people and let them know these are the things that we're doing outside the walls of our church. Maybe you can't get the multimedia generation in your church, but you can reach them out there in that harvest, right? So let me show you this next story. This is Chris Garrett. And Chris Garrett, a former Vietnam vet, but he was a hood, man. Let me tell you, this dude, he lived a jacked up life until he got saved and got everything turned around. So let's play Chris Garrett's story.
The kid who was mad at God is back. We ain't mad no more. We're partners.
Chris Garrett is a military chaplain for the U.S. Armed Services at Calvary Christian Center in Sacramento, California. His job is to minister to troops around the globe with a message of hope and provide moral support as they serve our country. But getting here has been a tough battle. For decades, this Vietnam vet was tormented with his past. His life was filled with anguish and pain. As a young teenager, he volunteered to go to Vietnam and serve with the 101st Airborne Infantry. It was a time when he had given up on his faith and trusted only in himself for survival. Because he felt his life was in shambles, God was his new enemy.
I used to read the Bible, find things that you weren't supposed to do, and then go out and do them, just to show him how mad I was.
After leaving the controversial war, he and other vets were met with protesters and demonstrations. And even though he was thousands of miles away from Southeast Asia, he relived that nightmare. He was especially devastated by the loss of his battle buddies.
Everybody was on the helicopter, and I jumped on the track, and we were lifting off, and I got hit in the leg. And I started to fall backwards off the helicopter. And Freddie reached out and grabbed me and pulled me in. And as he was turning, he took one to the side of the head. And nothing mattered after that. It just didn't matter.
After Vietnam, he settled in Sacramento and proudly pursued a life of crime.
Counterfeiter, bank robber, drug dealer, prostitute, thug. Went through 5 marriages.
Living across the street from the bus station as a drug dealer, he and a friend planned to murder one of his enemies.
I was just going to cave the guy's head in with a baseball bat and put him in a 55-gallon drum with holes and rocks and throw him in the river.
And then he happened to see Mike Murdoch on Daystar Television with a surprising message for him.
Mike Murdoch stopped and said that God had spoken to him about a man in Sacramento who was going to do something and that I shouldn't do it.
So he didn't. And then he started watching Faith Alive television, but he didn't know where Dr. Godot's church was. So he called Daystar Television and asked for a local church in Sacramento.
So they said, well, Calvary Christian Center. So the next morning I caught the light rail and walked out to Calvary Christian Center. I got here just when they were doing altar call. And I walked down to the altar and did the altar call. And that was September 6, 2003. I can't tell you what it did.
Well, what it did is helped launch his chaplain's ministry from Sacramento at Calvary Christian Center. He now services and supports troops and veterans around the world. So what used to torment him is now his ministry.
The Lord has blessed us with almost $300,000 worth of material that we've given out across the United States to different troops. We run 3 radio stations on the internet now. We broadcast about 16,000 soldiers 24 hours a day, Christian music, Pastor Godot's word. And this is where I belong. And I have no doubt in my mind that if it had not been for Faith Alive TV and Christian TV, I'd be dead now. I have no doubt. Faith Alive TV saved me, saved my kids. And that's all that matters.
What do you think about that? That's amazing. But you know what? There's stories in this room like that. There are amazing stories to be told. And this is the cool thing about it. So if I came up here and I gave my testimony, you guys would hear it, and we were visual people. Then probably a couple of days from now, you said, "Wait a minute, was Ron in the Army? Was he in the Navy? What was he doing? Did he work for the San Francisco Police?" But you know what? These stories live forever. You can always use them. 15 years from now, I can use that same testimony, or Zena's testimony, or even the next testimony you're about to see. That's why these testimonies are so precious and a great tool. Now you may be thinking, well, you know what, Ron, I know that our churches, we don't have the type of equipment to be able to put together something like that. You don't have to have anything high speed and high tech to make it look good. All you need to know is know how to string together some interviews, shoot what we call a little B-roll. You don't have the music, the narration. You don't need any of that. But that testimony lives forever. Always. All right, this next story you're going to see, because I think we're getting close to food here pretty soon. The next story that you're going to see is Jocelyn's story. Now, Jocelyn, her situation was very unique, and where her mom was murdered. As a matter of fact, I want to point out that Ralph, the guy back there on the camera, he shot this particular story for me, and then later on I was able to edit it together. But this is Jocelyn's story. Let's listen in.